You know, a year ago today, thousands of young Nigerians trooped out to the streets in protest against police brutality. They also called for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad called Sars. That's a section of the police which had gone rogue at the time. Their call was heeded and Sars was disbanded. That is just one of the demands. The protesting youth had gathered at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital, daring the odds that come with the nights and braving the tension of the moment. What followed were shootings. Up or directly at protesters, the details of the directions of the guns and events of that day are still riddled in debates. 1 year after the globally acclaimed EndSARS protest, what have been the gains? What are the consolidations? What's the hope of the Nigerian youth? Where is Nigeria as a country headed? Welcome to Village Square Africa. I'm Sulaiman. The EndSARS protest marked a historically significant period in Nigeria's story. It birthed new heroes and saw that the Nigerian youth, after all, can stand up as a force and make demands from their government. Organized across religions, tribes, cultures, beliefs, opinions, and class came together under one umbrella and sought a way forward. Peacefully, that is, but then the dark clouds. When hoodlums hijacked what had been a peaceful protest, the situation changed. A new reality dawned on Nigerians. Businesses suffered from looting and police stations, bus stations were ransacked and razed. It threatened to erode the pains and sweats of many days. Innocent Nigerian youth were beginning to lose the plot to hoodlums, and that day, October 20, 2020, would be a watershed moment forever in the history of Nigeria. Since then, a panel of inquiry for victims of police brutality has been set up across states. Some victims have been compensated, but the core demands are still largely unmet. Now, joining me on the square today to unpack the EndSARS protest 1 year after, with me in the studio is Mayowa Ajibodu. He's the program director, Shun Unemployment Foundation. Via Zoom, I have Okechukwu Nwanguma. He's the Executive Director of Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center. And on phone, I'll be joined by a former Deputy Inspector General of Police, Frederick Taiwo Lakanu. And gentlemen, welcome to the program. Let me start with you, Mayowa. You were a part of the protest, which played a significant role in organizing protesters at that time. Looking back and what's happening at the moment, are there any thing you would wished you had done differently then from what has transpired today? By the way, did you go out today?
No, I couldn't go out today because I had some other engagement, and then I had to prepare to be here today. So, but then we joined online, we watched, and we gave our moral support to those who went on ground to. You see, it's been 1 year, and I can tell you for a fact that nothing really has changed. Nothing really has changed, because if things has changed, then of course what we saw today shouldn't have happened. Today we still had cases of police brutalizing those who came out to protest peacefully. I think one of the excuses they used the last time was that there are those with cutlass, there are those fighting, there are those looting, but that never happened today. So how come without that, you still had police having to brutalize those who came to protest peacefully? So I feel nothing much has really changed, really. We're still where we are. It's been 1 year of deceit. It's been 1 year of lying. It's been 1 year of pride. You can't solve a problem you have not openly admitted exists. So how do you solve a problem you have not really, accepted that this problem exists? So there's a problem of deceit. There's a problem of accountability. There's a problem of transparency. And if this is not properly solved, then you keep having the same people coming out every year, having EndSARS memorial again. So we need somebody to come out and say, this is what happened, and this is how best we can handle this, and this is how best we can all move forward. But if that is not done, then you keep having the same youth coming out to, make their voice heard.
All right, let me quickly welcome Deputy Inspector General Lakanu, retired. Once again, thank you for your time, DIG Lakanu. Perhaps let's take it from the police angle. I'm excited that you're here. Let's start by looking at Sars, which is no more today. Perhaps you should be able to help Nigerians understand what led to the formation of Sars and on what basis and structure it existed then.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thank you for inviting me to the program. Well, you've asked me to comment on the formation of Sars. The original Sars, not the ones that we have creation programs all over now, was created in 1992, and I was privileged to be one of the members. And of course, it was a child of necessity. Child of necessity in the sense that crime rate was extremely high in Lagos at that particular time. And that was the time we had so many gangs, like Shino Rambo gang. We have the Kankara gang from the north coming to take us, and we also have the Montana group. So many, series of robbery incidents being committed in Lagos. And prior to this, there were anti-robbery squads in virtually all the state CIDs. But the state of Lagos seems now to be capable of solving the crime or various missions crimes happening. They not to be forced hierarchy, men, standardized, and started to form special anti-robbery squad. It is special added to it. And of course, they picked the officers, vibrant officers from all over the country, led by the Maverick. I call it Maverick because it was one of the best we had that time operationally, Simeon Midenda. And we are less than 100. And of course, the directive was very clear: reduce crime at all costs. So we strategized, and we succeeded within a few moments to reduce crime in Lagos. But our modus operandi was quite different from what those days were not seen. You cannot see us on the road. You couldn't have even come across us because we were stripped, and we only came out that time when robbery incident must have occurred, not that we would stand on the road and check in vehicle.
Well, I think this is really a shock, and I'm quite sure you heard him. Back in 1992, good thing that he was a member then, yes, a part of SARS, and he's just told the world how they were operating at that point in time, more like a special purpose vehicle or like an emergency outfit there to, come in whenever there is any kind of problem. Was that?
But let me quickly say, the good thing about us up that time was that it was a team. It was a team. But like now, where each police division had a set of SARS. No, it was just one team stationed in Ikeja. And in the evenings, we would share ourselves out, and of course, we knew all the routes. So in any case of robbery happening, we're out there, and we return quickly back to our base. Not that we hang around the street. Unlike the eradicated one, everybody was wear t-shirts, stand on the road and carry guns. No, it wasn't like that. We're not even wearing jeans. I was wearing agbada because the agbada could effectively cover my AK-47. And like I said, we were very swift, very, very swift. We don't hang around roads. Thank you.
All right, I'll come back to you, DIG Lakanu. Let me come back talking about what exactly is happening here. Mayowa, listening to him, first, that's a retired DIG. Did you get anything from just merely listening to him in comparison with what Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, were going through before they trooped out en masse in October of 2020?
Yeah, I think in their time, what was clear was they understood the job description.
What was clear?
They understood the job description. These particular ones, the ones we are fighting against, don't understand the job description. It is special anti-robbery squad. Now, rather than facing these armed robbers, facing people who are terrorizing their citizens, they would rather focus on people who are not robbers. And so if you do that, what you get from the retaliation or the feedback you get from people will not be friendly. And if that happens, then there will be issue of conflict. And that is what you see. That is why you see them brutalizing people who cannot give them money. You see, because these guys feel that probably the government has misplaced priority when it comes to taking care of their responsibility. You know, government is no longer taking care of their needs. Government is no longer paying their salary as I went due. You know, some of them feel that the salary they are getting was not even enough. And the best way to, live is to earn a living from good citizens who are not robbers. So they have neglected their job description. Now they focus on something else. I think that's where the problem is, So when you are not carrying out the job you are meant to do or you are paid to do, then it becomes a problem. So if that problem can be solved, then we'll not be where we are today. Really.
Well, Mr. Lakanu, Mayowa said something very, very important. If it's a conditionality clause here now, if Nigeria had been able to solve, the lapses and the complaints coming from people that have been so brutalized by members of the disbanded Sars, we wouldn't have been where we are today. Quickly, you were on the panel of the Judiciary Committee in Lagos. Perhaps you should be able to tell us the outcome, because it seems the protesters are not satisfied.
That's funny. How can you be satisfied with information that you have not had, you've not seen? We've not released any report, so how come they are not satisfied? Probably they are not satisfied that we've not released the report. Well, that is quite understandable. I want people to understand the fact that we did a thorough job, and it was a quasi-judicial body, which of course entails, granting adjournments, fair hearing and stuff. But it was well in depth. Well, I wouldn't want to let the cat out of the bag yet. But it's something that will be very pleasing, very, very pleasing, and everybody will. I think it will go a long way to solve our problems. We realized that everybody was waiting for us, looking forward to our the outcome, but I'm quite sure that everybody will be happy.
Well, I think, the waiting time is as important as the outcome. But quickly here, let me bring in Okechukwu, who's here via Zoom. Okechukwu, thank you for your time. And quickly, let's start talking about the Nigerian youth. By now, a whole lot of people had thought there would have been closure to what happened a year ago. Listening to a member of that panel, he said Nigerians will be excited once that outcome comes out. But for now, what do you think will be that, soothing information or move that can sort of assuage the pains and agitations of Nigerians? Because today, they're still out there on the street.
Okay, thank you for having me. And I'm sorry I've been having problem with connectivity. I wasn't able to listen to what had been said before now, but I just hope that I will not repeat what had been said. But the first thing to say is that it's sad to note that today, we still witnessed the same type of behaviors that, from the police and security agencies that prompted or spurred the Sars protests a year ago. The Sars protests of 2020, which was actually the movement of the campaign against Sars from social media to the streets, which eventually led to the Lekki Gate shootings, was a significant development in our political history. It marked the entry of the younger generation into the struggle. Of course, you know that before then, Nigerian youth have been passive. They had been described as lazy, So suddenly they found their voices and came into the fray, and we saw how peaceful they were, making demands against police brutality and against bad governance. And it is important to note also that the government had accepted that their demands were genuine concerns and the government would address it. But of course, we saw what happened. I think that if we want to examine what happened, we need to look at those 5-point demands item by item to be able to know whether indeed anything has changed. And it is important also to know that among the 5 demands was that the welfare of the police should be taken care of. So they did not lose sight of the fact that the poor treatment of the police also makes them prone to violence and corruption, which was what they were fighting against. I would say that the setting up of the panels by the various states was a good step in the right direction. But apart from Lagos State, where we saw serious work going on, other states were just, it was just like they set up those panels just to assuage public outrage, But Lagos State did, tremendous work. We saw a number of victims compensated monetarily. Of course, no amount of monetary compensation can compensate for life and dignity. Lost life, lost and dignity. But of course, it's a symbolic way for the state to say we do not condone human rights violations. But what is left to be seen is for the perpetrators of these violations to be brought to account, which is the only way to stamp out impunity. And from what we are seeing today, it doesn't seem that much lessons have been learned from security agencies because they still resorted to the same brute force, that unnecessary, excessive force that was not necessary. I mean, when people are protesting, they are simply exercising their rights to freedom of expression. And unless they have committed a crime, you cannot just resort to unnecessary violence like the ones we saw today. Journalists were arrested, were brutalized, protesters were attacked, and I think that was not good. It shows that no lessons have been learned. Unless people are made to, account for the atrocities they have committed, it will be difficult for us to believe that government is actually serious in
let me throw this in, Okechukwu, since, the connection to your location seemed to be okay now. Quickly, let me throw this in. Tell us here the position of the law on protest.
Yeah, I mean, protest is part of expression. The Constitution provides for freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. And protest is one way of expressing dissent, which is allowed in a democracy. And the law requires that, it's a constitutional right. The law does not say that citizens who wish to exercise any of these democratic rights must obtain permit from the police. What the law requires is for them to notify the police so that the police will provide guidance and protection for people who are peacefully exercising their rights. The police does not have the power under any law to ban protests or to say citizens must not protest. The reason they are giving that hoodlums will do this and do that, it is their duty to make sure that hoodlums do not infiltrate peaceful protests. In a democracy, you cannot prevent people from protesting under any guise. Democracy is inseparable from freedom of expression. And so when the police come out to say people should not protest, I think they're going beyond the limit of their powers.
Let me bring in Mayowa. Mayowa, listening to Okechukwu, he said, in his words, the protest was an all-encompassing protest that sort of sought demands even for the police. So, would you say it was a lost chance for the country to also have, a revitalized police, service?
Well, I think part of the thing they said that the vice president did when this whole thing started last year was to call for the reform of the police. But then it's quite sad that we hardly see that reform. So when you say police are reformed, what aspect of reformation was therein? So what exactly did you mean by reform? What has changed? Is it that their salaries have been increased? Is it that their mode of the way they carry out activities have changed? All of those things. Because I feel that nothing has really changed. Because if things are strange, then they will understand, like you said, the rule of law. They will understand the place of freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. And that did not happen at Lekki toll gate this morning. We saw what happened. These guys came out to protest, just having their vehicles passed. And then you still went ahead to, spread tear gas, do a lot of things without them, So I feel that this reform is not valid yet. So it's not. Except there's another definition of reform that we need to know.
Let's bring in DIJ Lakanu. Earlier, the Minister of Information and Culture here in Nigeria told the world that 37 police officers and 6 soldiers lost their lives in that protest last year. Being a privileged Nigerian at that panel, how can the government try to secure judgment for everyone who's aggrieved or who has a genuine claim at suffering a loss from those protests?
Well, first of all, I would like to say this. The part of the demand made by the protesters, one of the major demands was that there should be a total reform of Nigerian police force. It was part of the 5 for 5. At least that actually got in my heart. You have to be realistic too. That policemen are Nigerians. I'm not saying this because the job I started for like 3 years. I could write a lot of stories, a lot of nasty stories about the force. You see, you have to, if you are serving somebody or you want somebody to serve you, look at the best in him. On the flip side, the reverse side of what happened, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Such an incident had never happened before. So many police stations were burned. Policemen were cannibalized. Policemen were the flesh, the earth policemen raw. They destroyed so many things. Some of them are homeless. Some, their daughters were raped. Some died. We always forget one thing, that we are the product of the society. We are. Drive away every single policeman now, bring another set. They will still behave the same way. The change has to be holistic. Nigerians should change, not just Nigerian police force. It's so sad. Maybe I'm talking this sort of sentiments. There are lots of wrongs. There are lots of that we need to get right. I was telling a colleague the other day, a friend of mine, that look at Ikoyi police station. You know that is the noble rich that live in Ikoyi. Can a policeman afford to rent a house in Ikoyi? Is there a barrack for him to stay in Ikoyi? Policeman says that Agege, Ogun State, they will come and they sleep inside what is it called? SCB vehicles. Such a person cannot be normal the next day. He cannot. You see, I'm not saying that government is not trying to make things. We need to. And I'm not justifying the various actions of the Nigerian police force. You have a way of dealing with crisis, even within the intra-crisis. We have our the room trial system. Even supervision authorities are even punished. But I'm not saying that they went too far. I'm quite sure those who protested the other time, majority of them were miscreants. There were those who had good intention. They started well. Even some policemen were even happy because they were fighting for them. But suddenly things went awry, started burning houses, burned courts, bombed hundreds of buses, and about almost 30, 40 buses and stuff. To me, it's something that will not go well for everybody. Policemen will not change overnight. They will not change. It will take time. But we need to work assiduously on the change. Thank you.
Well, I want to stay with you quickly before I come to Mayowa, and it has to do with also the reform. By the way, we commiserate with every Nigerian, even officers of the law who lost their lives in that very unfortunate incident. But again, you said something about changing the police. Perhaps we should start talking about this. Going back in time while you were in the service, some of the complaints by Nigerians were not this loud. It then means just one thing. People loved the police more during your time than now. So that is why the agitations are getting louder. If you will, what are those key things you think the country should actually look into in helping us get a better police service?
I'm sorry, just Can you hear me?
No, I'm talking about looking at reforms. But being an ex, police officer, there are some key things you must have been able to identify to help the government and even the Police Service Commission and the police look into the policing system in Nigeria when we talk about reforming the police. Are there, things you can point out?
I will refer you to so many reports written concerning reforms. We don't need to start talking about this. There was that like many reports. We've never had any since then. Then there was another, about almost 4 or 5 reports. Then, the moment we are ready, we are serious about reforming the force. When we bring out all these notes, all these sittings, all these panels, then we'll be serious. I've never seen anything serious being done. I've never seen new barracks being built. I've never seen new things developing. It's still the same old story. But we still have very good officers. The President of the Nigerian Police is damn good. He was telling me a couple of days back on his determination to reform the force. But you need the total support of the federal government.
Well, I'll come back to you because we're trying to, we don't want to talk about reform, looking at it more like, in the word. We're trying to see if we can actually start talking about perhaps, for instance, the recruitment process, the training process, the relationship between the police and the civil population, how an average police officer should comport or conduct himself or herself. These are some of the things that we hope that we should be able to touch on before we let you go. We'll come back to you, DIG Lakanu. Let me come back to Mayowa. And Mayowa, let's start talking about young people. Sometimes people thought you get together this kind of crowd because the young are unemployed. So they're idle. Does it sit with this argument when it comes to the NSAS, protest?
I don't think unemployment has anything to do with the amount of people you see out there. You see, whatever has your attention has your interest. So I am passionate about building a sustainable environment. I am passionate about having a worthy economy. I'm passionate about having a good and better Nigeria. So that has my attention. And then definitely do you have my interest. I will have to do whatever it is in my power, in my capability to make sure I achieve that. And the reason why you are having these numbers of people trooping out, coming out to let their voices, is because they are passionate about having a better Nigeria. It has nothing to do whether they are unemployed or am I unemployed. No, I have something I'm doing, and yet I still come out. I work with my team, to organize the same protest too, because we are passionate about having a better Nigeria, having a Nigeria that we can all be proud of. It has nothing to do. You see, a lot of people left their job as I went this protest started, to go out, let their voices. What about the celebrities? What about some of my friends, colleagues who are doing in the comedy industry, music industry, who came out today? Does that mean they are jobless? Some of them need to make skits today, but they abandon the skit in order to come out and lend their voice. What about his blessed memory, South Sultan, who despite his condition knows how he feels, still came out 2010, 2020, came out to let out his voice despite his health condition. Was he jobless? Doesn't he have pain in his body and all of that? No, these people were passionate about their country. All we are saying is we need a government that can be responsive. Look beyond the shouting, look beyond the noise, look beyond and see the pain of the people.
You didn't think the government was responsive enough because at a point in time, even the governor of Lagos State was a part of the protesting, people at the toll. He was there, he paid a visit. At a point in time, also, the vice president of Nigeria also spoke about it, and he said, let's have your demands, and we'll work on that. So isn't that what they call a responsive government?
I think we need to be clear on I don't know how to put it, but I think I will tell it. There's a difference between political responsiveness and social responsiveness, so to say. You don't come out and try to politicize what is happening. No, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. All right, so I feel he came out because he needed to, protect an image at that time. Because if you say he's responsive, then we should have seen the result date. But that is not happening. So what you know, I don't think it's responsible enough. I feel that it is more, you know, it was trying to politicize and cover certain things. I bet to say that.
For the very first time in the history of Nigeria, some states, specifically Lagos State, now have paid over 100 persons compensation from that panel.
Have we seen them? Have we seen these people being paid? Because I think as at Monday, they just said certain money has been approved, just Monday. So have they started disbursing this money from Monday to Wednesday?
No, we're trying to look at a responsive government here. If you have a government that has said some certain amount has been earmarked as compensation for these people who had complained about brutality from the police, isn't that commendable?
You first of all look at, you see, someone said that when you study your past, it helps you narrate, prepare and prepare for the future. So you look at this present leadership, look at this present government. How many times have they promised or say that they disburse certain funds and these funds are not being disbursed eventually? So if you said there are certain budgets you've set aside, we need to see it. We need to see the practical aspect of it. We need to see the family come out and say, yes, we have received this. If that is not being done, then you don't expect us to believe that that money has been given. So I am still of the opinion that if you say certain money has been, disbursed for this purpose, until we see that the families can come forward and say, yes, we have received, then of course. See, I feel that two things are important to solve this crisis on ground. It is truth-telling and apology. Truth-telling and apology. The government needs to be open enough, transparent enough to, to say things the way they are and act on it and apologize.
And what about the people? You don't think it's both ways? The people also should be honest enough.
When you mean the people are being honest enough because they are saying their mind. But the government has failed to say their mind. The government are politicizing the things they are supposed to say. They are politicizing the things they are supposed to do. They need to see beyond the surface. People are suffering. People are clamoring for change.
Yeah, before I go to Okechukwu, are you aware that some people's your petitions were thrown out from the panel because they were discovered to be, liars and people who were trying to profit from the panel? So that comes to the issue of honesty on both sides.
I quite agree. It's possible. When you have, there's always a case where you have to give room for bad fruit and all of that. But, this is a nation, it's social contract. So but beyond this individual, look at the larger populace and see what you can do to make it better. So don't look at because one person came out and all of that, then that justifies every other person. No, I'm still standing that the government needs to be truthful enough, transparent, say the things the way it is. Who gave that order? Come out and then apologize. Maybe, I think it's just a natural principle that works. Apology and truth-telling.
Let me come to you, Okechukwu, quickly here. Now Nigeria is here today, 2021, and the issues are still very much on the table. What are those things you would have loved to see from both sides? Still maintain both sides. That's how communication works. What are those things you would love to see on both sides to, put Nigeria among the nations which you also canvass for talking about the rule of law? How can Nigeria get its elevation on the pedestal of the rule of law, looking at what we're discussing at the moment?
Well, let me first of all point out that the police in any society is a reflection of the type of government you have. The police is the public face of democracy in any society. Government has not demonstrated sufficient commitment to police reform. You would recall that just barely 1 month before the commencement of the October 2020 protest, the president had signed into law a new Police Act 2020. And this was the first time that the colonial police law will receive any comprehensive review from the pre-colonial time, 1943, when that law was promulgated. But of course, just like previous efforts in the past, when government set up panels on police reform, panels will go around the country, conduct public hearing, write good reports with fantastic recommendations on how to, achieve far-reaching reform. But at the end of the day, in some cases, white papers will be produced, and what remains to be seen is implementation. Government does not provide the resources that the police need to do their good job. There are very many good police officers within the system, but who are inhibited by the system. The DIG that we are here speaking with today is one of the very good officers I know. He may not remember, I had encountered him when he was Commissioner of Police in Imo State. But some of these few good ones are inhibited because of the system we find ourselves. What resources do the police have? What equipment do they have? What is their morale like? How much are they motivated to do their work? So when you make the police, when you reduce them, when you make the work difficult for them by not providing the basic resources they need. The other day, in 2019, a police trust fund was set up by the government. A law was passed, set up a police trust fund to fill the funding gap for the police. Of course, you know that over the years, the government has failed to adequately fund the police and equip the police. So this trust fund was set up to provide a window to provide additional fund. But what has happened? Who did government appoint into that trust fund? And what has happened today? They are quarreling among themselves over who stole what money and who didn't steal what money. They are currently facing investigation before the ICPC. And I'm saying all this to say that yes, we can blame the police as much as we have, but the truth is that unless the police are adequately funded, unless they are adequately equipped, you see, poor pay, ill-equipped police make them prone to corruption, make them prone to violence. And that is why we see the situation that led to Sars. When the police have to rely on complainants and accused persons for money to do basic investigation, it creates room for corruption and abuse. And when we say all this, government is not doing anything. Government is not providing resources. Government is not implementing the new police act I just talked about. Makes provision for funding, makes elaborate provision on due process safeguards and how police should exercise their powers. There are so many people who have duties under the law, under that police act, including the magistrates that should supervise the police, including even the governors who are supposed to be members of the police council, who ought to sit with the president to, appoint a new Inspector General of Police when there's vacancy. But what happens? The president is allowed to exercise that power alone, and he appoints people as IGP, not based on professionalism or competence, but based on politics. So unless the government demonstrates genuine commitment to police reform, nothing can change, because police officers are poor, unless you will humanize the police, radically improve, to address corruption is to humanize the police and improve the welfare of the police. And unless this happens, we can't see any change, any fundamental change. And that is why today we are still seeing the same pattern of behavior, pattern of conduct that led to Sars. Absolutely.
Let's bring in DIG Lakanu here. Okechukwu said a lot about how best the country can humanize, the police. Let's start talking about the recruitment process. Do you think is one of the key things that the country should also look into, the kind of people and the processes leading up to, bringing people into our police service? Is it something worthy enough for us to retain or to jettison or rejig?
I would like that last speaker, he has said it all. In the statement I made earlier, I made mention of various reports that we have not seen, that the white paper has not seen the light of the day. And he hyperventilated all our problems. I'm quite sure he's a member of the police family or is very close to policemen. Because if you want the best from somebody, you give him the best. How come anytime we go outside the country, we excel? It's baffling. Go to Namibia. Policemen that were sent there for special duty are still being retained there. We perform well. That's when our policemen want to go out and work rather than staying here. They are Nigerians, and we behave true to that. There are so many things wrong that the last speaker has initiated, but I'm able to talk much for constraints. Okay, but we know that there are so many things wrong with the Nigerian police force. I want to talk. The response we should be this. Let's know what happened to the Nigerian police force.
Quickly here, dear Lakanu, are there things you would like to share with the Nigerian public on how best to seek redress within the police community? If someone is so aggrieved and you find yourself in a police station and you believe that something hasn't actually gone right, who and how should you go about it in the best manner that will ensure that your rights are not further, taken away from you by whoever has taken you to that police station? I'm quite sure you understand the question.
Okay, I'm not hearing you very well, but I know that the panel also listened to the complaints of policemen. That really gladdened my heart. They were invited because, like I said, we also look at the reverse side, the flip side. Okay, then our conclusion was that what's good for the good is good for the gander. And concerning the improvement of Nigerian police force, I know that there are series of workshops, there are series of symposium ongoing, and I'm very happy that Nigerian Bar Association has been made fit to set up a committee comprising of Nigerian lawyers and police to meet together and form a very strong team to look at various issues that the Nigerian police officers are going through. I think that's a good beginning. It's a good start. Like we said, it's very easy to take care of police, but are they being taken care of? Are they being trained? And do they provide the equipment? Do you see them using modern equipment on the road? So these are minor parts of the problem. The issues are deeper than that. If you want the best, train the best, and then they will get the best from them.
Hear me now, dear Lakanu. I need to put this in because it's very important that people get to understand how they can seek redress within the police stations. So, yes, so when you accost a police officer and things don't go right for you, how can, as a citizen of Nigeria, can you seek, justice without further getting into trouble?
Can you just repeat yourself? Because honestly, maybe it's a technical problem. Are you coming slowly, please?
Hello?
Are you coming more slowly?
Well, I think I just asked that again for the second time. I'll come back to you before we close. Let me come to Mayowa here. Mayowa, listening to Diaji Lakanu and Okechukwu, it would mean that we have a problem. There must be a change, a rejig of the policing in Nigeria.
So the first question I want to ask is, this present administration, are they really willing to see that change happen? So if they are able, if they are willing, and when the willingness is there, it's easier to carry out action. So I think that's the first thing we need to address. We need to be sure if this current administration wants to see that change happen. And if that is the case, then the youth don't have any other option than to support them. And that's why we are saying that part of our demand is reform these guys, give them all they need. Like you rightly mentioned, and you were trying to ask the
retired DIG.
Retired, yes. What are the structures, what are the systems put in place to reform these guys? So we need to know those systems. We ourselves want them to be fine. We want to be able to walk into any police station and say, okay, this is my problem, this is my complaint, without having to get into trouble. We want to be able to be, to be safe in our homes. We want to be safe on our street. We want to be safe driving our vehicles. And I think this can only be possible if these police guys are properly structured, given what they, what they demand or what they need to, earn a living. And like you said, The truth is, for every Nigerian that leaves this country, they usually excel. They usually do well. So what's the difference? What happens? So we need to study that change. What are they getting over there that they are not getting here? There's no harm in learning. There's no harm in copying, just to make sure you have the best for your country. So we need to find out, what do we need to do to make these guys better? What do we need to do to make our police reformed? What are those systems? What are those structures that need to be put in place? And if the government are willing to do that, the people are willing to support.
Let me bring a bit of politics to Okechukwu here, and you help the country, if you will. Nigeria is preparing for an election in 2023, and it's getting louder and louder. And now the issue of injustice, police brutality is still very much on the plate. What are those key things you think Nigerian youth, especially the very young, who are agitated, would love to see in anyone vying for the next office, irrespective of whether it's grassroots politics or at the center or national election? Are there things that the ordinary Nigerian should expect to see from anyone who's put himself up for any kind of election?
Well, unfortunately, in Nigeria, politics is not based on issues. We are yet to see the type of politicians, that will take this country beyond the level where it is in terms of addressing issues, rather than, focusing on personal or narrow, interests. And I think that the Sars protest actually threw up a momentum that a lot of people thought that could be sustained, and that youth movement that evolved, that drove that change, that call for change in terms of governance, will transform into a political movement that will seek to go for seek for power. Because truth is that none of the existing political parties in this country, the mainstream ones that we know in particular, holds any hope. As a matter of fact, they are the problems that we have in this country. So I think that it's a challenge for the youth, and the success of any country, the progress of any country, depends on the youth who actually make up the larger population. So I think that momentum must be sustained and transformed into a political movement that will provide a space for the youth to seek power. If they cannot do that, they should influence what happens in the existing political parties to ensure that the agenda of the youth, which is end to police brutality, end to bad governance, end to corruption, end to unemployment, will feature as the main issues that will drive the 2023 election, so that the will, for the first time, the will of the people will prevail rather than the will of the few who are able to rig elections. And of course, when you note that politicians are resisting efforts at electoral reform because they're already used to manipulation, so they don't want to accept certain innovative, reforms that INEC is bringing in, including electronic transmission, because that will prevent them from manipulating elections. So it tells you how they are not interested in making progress, in letting this country move forward. So I think a lot lies in the hands of the youth to make sure that we move this country, we rescue this country, we reclaim this country from the old, politicians who have held this country to ransom, who have kidnapped this country and kept it down. The youth must transform their energy and this momentum into a political movement to seek political power.
Let's quickly go to DIG Lakanu. Listening to Okechukwu, he's been able to talk about some of the gains that the country has coming from the Sars, the power of the Nigerian youth. What would be your message to the Nigerian youth as well as your colleagues in the police?
Are you talking about my opinion or what?
Yes, your opinion, message to Nigerian youth and your colleagues in the force.
Well, in all sincerity, we all admired the youth when this day happened. The only aspect of it was the damages, that happened. Because if they had done a couple of days and had left, I'm quite sure, as far as I'm concerned, it was a revolution. I think it wanted to that was such a thing had never happened before. So I would just advise them that they should be more organized and they should make sure that they don't miss chances. That every Nigerian appreciated them when they carried out this the protest last year. But like I said, it was a bit too far because there were a lot of things done. There were a lot of things that were not done right. But like what happened today was a bit fair. We are getting there. It wasn't as terrible as the last time. Policemen were comported, though there were a few issues here and there. But I hope that with what we have started, it shows that the country belongs to you. And I see a lot of improvement coming up.
Well, yeah, Lakanu, thank you. And I come to you, Mayowa. The power of the Nigerian youth has gone beyond social media. We've seen the physical, call it raw power, as seen during NSAS of 2020. And now we've seen their resilience, their staying power. How can these be converted, into the political space, causing a change in the political space more now that Nigeria is getting into an election year?
Oh, all right. So I think the first thing I'd like to say before I come to that is beyond the problem. I would like to encourage the youth to see beyond it and find a way to add to the ecosystem of the nation, find a way to strike a balance. We are all just praying and working hard to have a better society, and that is what we're doing. And like Riley said, last year we saw that really the youth are prepared and a lot can happen with the power that we weigh. And I see that happening and, transferring into a political party. I see that, I see more youth like myself coming out, to change the narrative, change the structure and see how best, some of our leaders that we have, this rotation of the bourgeoisie that we have, some of them started at the age of 29. Some of them started at the age of 26. And I was studying some of them recently. And I believe that these same youths are prepared. Some of us are within that age bracket. Some of them are even above. So I believe we are ready. So this energy, these plans, this movement that we started should just go beyond, clamoring for change on social media, but should also, turn to a political party and see people come into power to make a difference. And that is what is going to happen eventually.
And lastly, from every other person watching, we hope that you also can be a part of this conversation. We'll stay on this and see how much we can actually get from the Nigerian youth to, talk more about nation building, as highlighted by Mayowa. He thinks that this might snowball into a political movement that will ultimately cause a better change for Nigeria. Many thanks for being such nice company, Mayowa Ajibodu and Okechukwu Nwanguma and DIG Taiwo Lakanu. Many thanks for your time and apologies for the glitch in some audio to you, Okechukwu and Lakanu. The protest may have been committed to the annals of history, but its impact has highlighted by you all, its purpose and the directions it left Nigerians with still live. Thanks for staying with us on the show today. I'll be back again. Goodbye.